Welcome and hello on today's episode on the Golden Muse show. I'm Chrisoula Sirigou, a teacher, emotional well-being educator, and author, amongst other things. On today's episode, I am delighted. I am going to have so much wisdom conversations and so much beautiful, heartfelt messages coming out with my guest today, Heather Cowen. Hello, Heather.
Oh, Chrisoula, thank you. I love that introduction. Thank you. Welcome. It's really nice to be here.
Well, Heather is just to announce, because this is part of my calling to create and give birth to a book, the book of Soulful Musings. And I hope you're going to receive a lot of inspiration from this beautiful exchange of musings between myself and Heather today. And also the book, I like to say that the pre-launch is on coming up. It's on the World Book Day, and also the launch is going to happen in May this year. So it's very exciting, and Heather is going to be one of the contributors in the book.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that, actually. Yeah. I love this impulse, Chrisoula. I love it.
Yes.
I'm very pleased to be a part of the book.
So let's yes, it's one big chapter in the book is dedicated to freedom and flow. And when I'm thinking about people that have got this wonderful energy that have helped over these last few years to help you to come back into your flow and be sort of back into your, enjoying life with ease. I couldn't just, I just thought of Heather, and Heather is let me just properly introduce you, Heather. So, an access consciousness, bars, and body process facilitator. Yeah. So, what does that mean then? That's what we're going to explore. Okay. So you may have heard of the bars, or you may have heard of access consciousness, or you may have already experienced that, or you may not. So this is the point here, that within the Soulful Musings you can receive something from different facilitators, different therapies, different educators, and Heather's got a beautiful energy. So I'm delighted. So Heather, over to you, my dear. I know that you one of the phrases that you use is what is one of the key questions that you use, that I love it, and then it has got the word ease in it.
What would it take to have greater ease here?
Yes.
Would be a really primary question.
Yes.
Yeah, in any situation that arises.
Yeah.
We tend to go for actually, we have come from a very long background of really working to try to get things done, haven't we? When you find that energy going up and you're going, it's getting sludgy, it's getting heavy, one of the ways that we can work with that is very simple. It's just called asking a question. And one of those questions would be, what would it take to have greater ease here? And in that moment that we ask a question, if we resist the need to have an answer, the right answer, and just stay with the energy of what that question creates, it's quite amazing how quickly, almost like a miracle, things begin to change. There's an answer that's always available, but it usually comes through the back door or through the side door, rather than, I have to do this differently, which would be full of a lot of conclusions. If we ask a simple question like, I wonder what it would take to have greater ease here, and take a little step back. Okay, just allow a tiny little rearranging of the molecules with the universe. And say, hey, can you give a guy a hand up here, please? That kind of thing. But be willing to receive in that moment.
That's really important. Yes.
Oh, it's such a gift. Chrisoula, I don't think we fully ever, any of us, have the whole brief on what it is to be receiving. I think most of us have an idea of what receiving can be and what it could create. But it is definitely one of the greatest gifts that I've become more keenly aware of through this particular body of work with the Access Consciousness tools. Would you like to know?
Of course, let's find out. Let's find out. What is it, and how can it actually assist your well-being, become more aware, becoming more in tune with your body, and I believe that we're here to enjoy life. That's our primary
totally
sort of to feel the joy and give joy and receive joy. But when our body is not in the flow, it's very hard to either receive or give joy. Yes. So
it is exactly.
So how would you say, how does, do you want to start with how you actually got involved with the Access Consciousness? Or would you like to say? Yeah.
I could tell a little bit about that. I mean, essentially, I come from a quite wide background of, being a seeker. I'm one of those many people on the planet right now who are here, yes, for the sheer joy of it. And what would it take for that to be possible? It's like a burning, yearning question. So after years and years and years of everything from, really a serious commitment to Zen Buddhism and a serious commitment to Hindu teachings and a serious commitment to a lot of spiritual teachings, I gave birth to a beautiful son, and through that I picked up some of my earlier desires to start to explore energy medicine, which had been with flower essences in Australia and a lot of different energy tools, including training as a kinesiologist. And this all supplemented my life very much as a mother, as a seeker, but as a mother. And through that relationship and my son going to a beautiful Steiner school further south in England, I met a very dear friend, one who is a continual friend, sharing so much of the magic that's available on the planet with me. And we get together, and what was happening is that she was experiencing really great joy in her life. And I'm looking at her going, wow, I'll have some of that. What is that? What is that she's on right now? I mean, sometimes it was almost so blinding. I'm going, I couldn't have any of that. I had to stretch myself and remember that this was my dear friend. And so I asked her a bit about it, and she said that she'd discovered an Access Bars session. And from an Access Bars session, she actually knew that there was something in there for her. And she proceeded in doing quite a lot of the primary classes with Access Consciousness. So I went and had a session with her. The session was a bars session. And within that bars session, we also did a little bit of one-to-one facilitation with some questions and see if we can create a little bit more space. So I'll just briefly describe what creating a little bit more space is in Access Consciousness terms. It's like sometimes we get very thickly into the density of something that we perceive as a problem. It's actually that we're judging it as a problem. And when there's a judgment around, it's always a lie of some description. And so what happens is that there's a density in there going, energetically at least. So the idea of having a one-to-one facilitation is a space where a facilitator will ask you a question, bring up the energy of what's creating the limitation in that moment, and allow it to change through the use of a beautiful clearing statement, like a magic wand actually. Very potent, beautiful, effective magic wand. Well, being a lover of magic, I was very much ready for the next piece. So, which was great. So I got onto the table and received my first bar session. And really, it's unfair ever to describe what happens for one person in a way that would be in any way projecting an idea of what could happen for another. But what happened for me during that session was not necessarily noticeable until a few hours later. When I arrived home, I don't quite know how I got there. I was in a definitely different space. And that definitely different space was a very expansive, open light. And I mean light in energy. I don't mean light as in show me the light in that way. I was lighter in my being. And what happened is I went home and I was there with two very, very dear people. One was my husband and the other one was my close friend. And we'd been working together. And, you know, when I'd left, there was a bit of a sticky energy. Just the stickiness that happens in life. Just the stuff that we call daily life, yeah? No big trauma.
Yeah.
But when I slipped back into the house, that energy was still there for them. And I was aware that I was no longer needing to take part in anything. And neither of them were in any way implicated through this in a negative way. It was just that I was able to be in a space where there was no need for anything to be heavy anymore. And nothing triggered. We all know that moment when there's just that little trigger.
Yeah.
Now these two people are not people that trigger me, but we were working with a project that had some stuff in it that we were working through. So in these hours and then the days that followed, what I observed in me was that what had been stuffy and sticky no longer existed. So we were able to move through our lives, our project, and everything very much more with ease.
Right.
Yeah?
Yes.
With ease.
Yes.
And I think that this is a really key piece. It's like we got to the other side of something in the bar session with my friend and me. My friend is called Juliana Freeman, actually. She's a certified facilitator of access consciousness. And we got to something different through that session whereby I experienced more space. Now, you know, there's lots of phrases that we have in the world that is, oh my God, she's just space. And there's a lot of judgments around that would actually say, whatever that is not something that's easy to be, or that it's comfortable to be, or even that it's okay to be. If you're just space, you might actually not be able to, you know, fit or do X, Y, or Z or get things done. But actually what I found was the opposite. This much space became more, there was more available for me in everything. I was more able to access my own knowing. Now, it would be unfair to say that it was just one birth session that I had. It was actually only one birth session for several weeks. And then I chose to do the class. And in doing the class, you basically receive 2 birth sessions and you learn to gift 2 birth sessions. And the great thing about giving a session is that you get a session. So you actually get the beautiful results of whatever's being released, deleted, emptied from the person who's receiving a session. If there is anything in their points of view or their feelings or emotions or whatever that is a similar match for me, I get the benefit of losing that particular file as well. So this was enough for me to, you know, start listening to free calls on the radio and start to generate a bit of interest in, well, hey, what are the next steps I could take to have more of this? Because this was really dynamically different to what I had been playing with and working at for a long time.
I like that you use the word playing, because the more I understand of who I am and, you know, my own purpose in life, I just believe that things need to be, you know, allowing to be in the flow. And then, as you said before, we don't need to work that hard. And when you talk about space, the word fluidity came to me, you know, like really things can actually be in the flow. And then when you are in that flow, the answers will come in, as you mentioned before. The people will come towards your direction and create beautiful collaborations. A book could just say, oh, by the way, I haven't read this book, and you open it up and then you have this aha moment, as it happened to me last night. So you know,
totally.
This is what I received from what you just said, using the access bars as a medium, as a channel where you can actually release and allow more. But that's how
Totally, Chrisoula.
I get it.
Thank you.
I get it like that.
So, yeah. So what actually happens in a session is a bars session is somebody mostly they would lie down, but not always. Somebody could have a short bar session sitting up. That would be fine. But there are basically 32 points on the head. They don't correlate with other modalities. They don't correlate with acupuncture points or anything like that necessarily. These were received through a channeling about 30 years ago through an incredible man called Gary Douglas. And he received the information, and then he kind of, as we do, you go along with your life, and you say, oh, that was pretty cool. But he started to get an inner kick. Hang on, pay attention. Something really, really special happened back there. So he started to toy with the idea of offering it to a couple of people to say, come on, shall we explore this a little bit more? And so from that, now 30 years later, or more than 30 years later, there's something like, I think, 173 countries in the world, more than 5,000, I might have that number wrong actually, many thousands of bars facilitators. And what goes on is somebody's lying down or sitting up, and very gentle touching of some of the points on your head in a very specific way, but gentle and not hard to learn, and just allowing the energies that are behind these 2 points. These 2 points, for example, are, Heather, can you get it? Oh, yes, I can. It's funny. Joy and sadness. So by just holding these 2 points, joy and sadness, for a gentle amount of time, we can allow the body, this thing that is a beautiful being, all on its own, without us interfering with it too much, hold those points, let the energies run, and what happens is we're dissipating like an electromagnetic field of energy that has gathered around thoughts, feelings, and emotions. Now, those thoughts, feelings, and emotions may be ours, but mostly they're not. We live on a planet with a lot of people. It's a pretty congested space.
Yes, indeed.
We are incredibly psychic. All of us. There's no denying. We're all incredibly psychic. Some are more willing to acknowledge those capacities, and they might become psychic channels, or they might be more aware, and others are just acknowledging, okay, well, maybe I know something about somebody else, but it might be just a little accident when I'm thinking of somebody and the phone rings and there they are. These are tiny little psychic moments along the way. So it's a bit of a sidebar, but it's just to demonstrate that actually I am here, aware of you there, and we're together by agreement. But what's to say that at another time when we haven't agreed to be together, I'm not actually aware of you in some way. So my head, my brain, my body is as much subject to all of the other thoughts, feelings, and emotions on the planet, and all of the other beings on the planet. I'm aware of.
So we're vibrating, and then we are, receiving the vibration from others.
We are, and that can create a lot of resistance, because sometimes it can be an overload of information. Gosh, I'm really covering a lot of ground here, Chrisoula. I suddenly want to speak about, people who have got OCD and autisms, and, very particularly fine sense awareness capacities. And they come into a planet. I actually am one of those people, but I've only discovered that recently. I come into a planet and I've learned to fit in, and I've learned to exist really well and very happily. But along the way, some of it really hurt. Some of the intensity of awareness that I had to be shut down. There was no way that I could figure out what to do with that information. It wasn't cognitive. So, you get this kind of sense of who you are is not what it's okay to be as a child. We come in vast with that whole gift of everything. And then we learn to fit. And that's a key piece. Learning to fit is the part of where we start to give ourselves away and give a lot of ourselves up. So a bar session can contribute to some of what it is that we've taken on and that we've molded around ourselves, shaped ourselves and defined ourselves as being. That through a session it might be possible to release, well, Gary says, as much as 350,000 lifetimes.
Wow.
You know.
Wow.
Now that's not the whole life, but it's if we're being impacted by something from a previous existence of ours or others' lifetimes, yeah, that we've taken into our worlds and made real. That's called a judgment. So we will live with those defining moments. From those defining moments, we actually effectively lose the capacity to be aware. Now, awareness is that piece that happens when we're in the flow. That's when the magic happens. That's when we can be in touch with the whispers of consciousness and the whispers of the universe.
Yeah.
But as soon as we're in the sort of defined world and the judged world, and believe me, it happens all day. You know,
we do that very. I think we are conditioned to judge. Absolutely.
Totally. Yeah. Well, you and I and most of the people listening will be the same. We've grown up seeking how to be right, not wrong. How essentially to be good and not bad. How we might find common denomination with others. And a lot of this is about kind of, well, in an Access Consciousness Bars class, one of the statements is polarity is the strongest addiction we have on the planet. Our addiction to polarity is the greatest addiction we have on the planet. So, we think addiction is too much alcohol sometimes, which it might be. That's one of the tendencies. But addictions show up in a lot of different ways. But who would have thought that one of the greatest addictions we have is our need, judgment, to be good or right or not wrong and not bad. So what's happening basically in a bar session is we just lose some of the impact of that polarity. Now, we don't know what's going on. It's very gentle. It's a deep, 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 almost meditation-like state that can be reached for many people during a session, including the person who's gifting. I find it incredibly relaxing. And the body itself, not just the brain and the mind, but the body itself will be dissipating and releasing the impact of what some of that electromagnetic has been creating for quite some time. So when you come off the table or out of the session, very often can be, somebody will say, what was that? Or, well, nothing happened. And actually, within the next 3 weeks, they'll find that every aspect of their life is actually completely different. It's really hard to say what will happen.
It's very subjective, and yes, absolutely.
Yes.
And then it depends what... I always believe that, when you receive some sort of, it could be therapy or you're being, your body receives some sort of guidance or, change or whatever, it depends how much you are actually at a state of receiving that guidance or this new way of seeing things, a new awareness.
Yes.
And then you may have an instant understanding and the impact is really strong straight away, or it could take a bit of time.
Well, this is actually I'd love to add to that. I agree. That is true. And this doesn't require you to understand anything. It really doesn't. And that can be great for some people, and it can also be, a reason not to do it because it's not necessarily a cognitive process. But what I did want to say is just to pick up on the word receiving, because we used that earlier in the conversation as well. Our willingness to receive anything is the key to the ease that we're asking for. So one of the immense gifts of anything to do with access consciousness is that we get to see the places where a judgment is creating our incapacity or our unwillingness to receive.
Mm.
Yeah? So a bars session is all about receiving.
That's it.
And so one bar session. I mean, for me, I'd have 2 bar sessions a week if I could. And sometimes I can. And I can run my own bars if I want to lie there and do that. But it allows me to be in a greater space for the receiving.
Mm.
And the receiving, here's the thing, this is really interesting. Receiving means my ability or my willingness to be present with anything that shows up.
Mm.
So, you know, that means a horror story as well.
Yeah.
You just get some really bad news. I want to be able to stay present, to be as conscious, awake and aware in that moment of receiving the bad news so that I can still be at ease with everything that's come towards me. And for that, I'm truly grateful.
Yeah. Well, I feel what you're saying, because it's also like to demystify, you know, this possibility that we always need to be in joy, you know, like to be, you know, but you may not always feel the joy, but you may feel that you are okay to receive the bad news or receive the drama in your life, you know, because these things we are surrounded by all of that, you know. We cannot just sort of keep ourselves under this, you know, sacred space all the time and not you know, be zen.
No.
It's not possible. So
absolutely,
the triggers will come from different direction, and there will be days that, you know, you'll be bombarded with triggers, and there will be other days you're going to be a little bit of, you know, easy. Nothing, but it can happen like that. So what do you do to keep yourself in that sort of as you said before, in that space?
Well, I mean, I certainly can't keep myself in that space. I actually have to use the tools all the time, and I'm using them all the time. They've now become a way. Now, what do I mean by tools? I mean being a question. So the bars is one thing. That's a physical touch. Let's call it a therapy or a modality. Gives the body greater ease. But some of the tools that I use daily, and maybe I've used this one question today, I don't know, 15 times, which is, what else is possible here? What else is possible? So that's one of those magical questions where, like we said earlier in the conversation, if I ask that, it begins to open the space for another possibility. And sure enough, that's the beginning of the change. And then if I stay open to receive the energy that is available from that, I will have the awareness to what the next step will be. So I was in a meeting earlier today, and I wasn't feeling very well today. I was unusually out of sorts with my body, and I was like, this is pretty heavy. So my two friends that I'm co-creating with at the moment, one of them asked the question, so if we weren't attached to this meeting having the outcome that we thought it was going to be, how could we each contribute to each other? And what else is possible that we haven't considered before? Yeah. So 2 little questions coming in beautifully. Honestly, Chrisoula, it was immediate. Each of us went, oh, okay. So one of the 3 of us brought in another idea, which was, how about we just actually look at those photos for the web shot, which was not what we had planned to do today. And we started to receive the energy of that. And that began to, all of the colors, all of the beings, all of the nature aspects that we were bringing together started to contribute to us. And each of our bodies started to receive the energy of what we were doing. We didn't have to do anything for it to change. It's very interesting. Very interesting. So that was one of the tools. And the other one is, okay, so, you know, when things are really awesome, like you're on a roll, like your wedding day, and honestly, it's the icing on the cake. It's your happiest day ever. We all love, you know, the memory of that greatest energy. Well, here's another awesome question you can ask. what else? No, not what else is possible. Yes, you could ask that. But this is the one I was going to offer is, how does it get even better than that?
Mm-hmm.
How does it get even better than that? This is an amazing tool. We can use this when things are really great and when things are not so good.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, you're in a really sticky situation. You really require some help fast. How does it get even better than this? What else is possible? How does it get even better than this? How does it get even better than this? Just be with the question, not the judgment of what it will show up like. There's some amazing stories about how that one question begins to change again. The molecules start to move in a different way so that you can start to receive more from those you're with or the universe.
You know, the word alchemy comes to me, and
Totally.
I like to honor the word, you know, being your own alchemist, and it is exactly what you are actually sharing with us at the moment, Heather. How you can actually create, as you said, the molecules, because we are energy. We are with this beautiful body of ours, but we are energy, and that's something that it may not be available to you at this point in time to get to appreciate that, apart from this being that, as you see, that we are actually energy. And there's some people call it space, some people call it, you know, soul, some people call it soul. You know, there are different ways you can connect with that.
Yeah.
But what you're actually saying, Heather, here is actually by asking these questions, you're allowing yourself to be your own creator of your own life. And
yes.
That's what the beauty of it is. And then instead of being hard on yourself that you haven't figured out what needs to be done, or you could have done it differently, you could have done it better, or you know, and then this hardness, this judgment, you know, by asking the question or questions, that's exactly what you're saying, that it is possible to receive more, it is possible to have more, it is possible to receive joy, whatever.
Yes, and you know, in that question, with the molecule changing, we get to be co-creators with the universe. In that moment, we get to say, hey, really, what can you contribute here? Because I'm willing to receive something that I hadn't thought was possible. Because thought is always going to be limited, isn't it? I mean, we can only think based on what we've learned or what we've picked up along the way. But what else is available to us? In these moments, if we're willing to acknowledge that there might be something other than what we think or we feel, what else is available? And my goodness, it's so fast. It is so fast.
It is fast.
Just these questions, you know, we don't even really need to learn any other pragmatic tools. For a child to have these two questions at the beginning of their life, so that they're not ruled by having to get the right answers when they ask a question. Chrisoula, this would change everything. These are foundation gifts. Foundation gifts for, you know, really creating a very different way of being. If we were starting to ask questions like, if I choose this right now, what will that create for the future? And in that moment, and I did that when you sent me the invitation to take part in the conversation, I asked myself, if I say yes, what will that create for the future? And I got that for my future, it was very lovely. But I also got the energy that for the future, it was a really beautiful contribution. And contribution is not me in service to do the right thing. It's just, wow, there's a really generative, spacious, beautiful energy there.
And what else is possible? That's exactly.
And how does it get even better? How does it get even better? Do we have time for me to share another tool, or are we at the end?
Well, another 5 minutes. Yes, we can.
Yes, we can. Okay, because another really beautiful gift is I was going to talk about something that is called the heavy and light tool, and it's really about us finding a different way of being in communication or communion with our bodies, and really developing a kind of trust that what we know is what we know. And if what I know is different to what you know in any moment, what would it be like if that was okay?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's quite a challenge. But anyway, we can let that challenge go because we have a tool, and it's called the heavy or light tool. So it's not about right and wrong. Light is not right, and heavy is not wrong. But it's about taking the energy and the molecules and the alchemy that you were speaking about and acknowledging ourselves as energy beings and saying, all right, if I choose this, is it light? Oh, that's quite nice. If I don't choose this, is it light? Oh, that's a little dense. So it wasn't a great example, really. Okay, let's say you've got a piece of cheese in your hand. There you go, piece of cheese, high cheese. Now, my body really enjoys cheese, but not all the time.
Mine too.
You know, I would really, I'm a bit of a cheese connoisseur. But at the moment, you know, I know that my body probably wouldn't like cheese today, at least if I'm thinking about it, because I'm a bit kind of, you know, heavy of energy. But I would actually go, oh, I quite fancy some cheese. Really? Do you, body? Oh, okay. Well, let's take ourselves over to the cheese and ask, body, if we choose the cheese right now, is it light? And she'll either light up and she'll go, yeah, we'll have that. Not my head, my energy. And if I choose the cheese right now, would you like that? And she'll go, And there'll be just this subtle difference. And what would it be like if we didn't make either of those a conclusion? What would it be like if we didn't make either a forever choice? Oh my God, my doctor's told me I can't eat cheese anymore. What if it's not that? What if it's just right now, in this moment, it wasn't light from my body to choose cheese? Hey, body, that's great. Okay, what would you like?
Yeah, the way I feel it is how we can develop a friendlier sort of connection. You know, become more friends with your body. That's the way I receive it. The way you described it.
Yeah.
And there is a way to rely on your own gut instinct, on your own intuition, your own connection with your body, rather than giving the power that somebody else has got the answer for you. Yes. So I think that's what I get from you, that actually you are in, if you like, in charge, you know, something like that. You are connecting with your body and you feel whether that's good for you right now or is not good for you right now.
Well, I thank you for the compliment of saying that I might be that. It's great that I'm giving you that sense. That's what I'm aiming for all the time, but it's new. It's new for me. I new as in 5 years, 6 years I've been working with these tools, and they have contributed that more than anything else. But I'm beginning to get that actually what's true for me is true for me. Mm-hmm. And I can't tell you how grateful I am to be able to build up that body of knowing, because from there, I get to bring in things that have never existed before. Then it becomes new. Then it becomes interesting enough for me to want to keep playing. Because I knew, like you did, Chrisoula, that coming into being on this incredibly beautiful planet that I adore would not have been about hard work. I wouldn't have chosen it for that. I'm for joy. This being's for joy. So how does it get even better than that?
That's it. How does it get even better than that? Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much, Heather. Thank you for this wonderful inspiration, and for being you, and your gorgeous smile as well, and everything that you bring into this world. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chrisoula. I've so enjoyed it. Thank you. Bless you.
Bless you. And these conversations, these soulful musings, are part of what I am here to facilitate and bring together. And all these people are coming along and say yes, they are responding to their own sort of calling to share the passion, their story, their heartfelt message. And these soulful musings are actually uploaded and for all of you life explorers, because that's what I like to call myself, and all of you are there. So they're all, on my YouTube channel. So I encourage you and invite you to subscribe, because there's already a lot of this exchange of and wisdom conversations on this platform, but equally there will be a lot more coming up. So if you took some juiciness out of this conversation with my guest today, Heather, then there will be more to come. Okay, so thank you so much. Lots of gratitude from myself, Chrisoula, and thank you so much, Heather.
Thank you so much, Chrisoula. Yeah, really a joy.